Purushottama Yoga. This term Purushottama is one of my favorites. Has a wealth of meaning. So it's two words mushed together. Uttama, which means ultimate. Purusha. Oh, what does Purusha mean? The oldest reference, or one of the oldest references, comes from the Rig Veda. And there's a very, very famous hymn called the Purusha Suktam, the hymn to the cosmic person. Purusha basically just means a person. And in Purusha Suktam, it anthropomorphizes the cosmos. So his eyes are the sun and the moon, and the waters are his kidneys, etc. It's a way to explain what occurs in nature using a human body as a metaphor. Later on and by the way, the Rig Veda, this is one of the oldest parts of it. This could easily be a 10,000-year-old hymn. So the term also shows up in what we call Sankhya philosophy. It's one of the 8 schools of philosophy, 6 schools. Anyway, one of the schools of philosophy. In the Sankhya philosophy, here Purusha means spirit. So we have the spirit, Purusha. We have matter, Prakriti. And in the Sankhya philosophy, the problem is the Purusha got entangled with the matter, the Prakriti, and we do yoga to try to disentangle the individual Purusha from Prakriti. In Gita, again, it has a much wider meaning. Now, Purushottama can be translated in different ways, depending on whether you belong to a Dvaita school, dualist, Visishta Dvaita, qualified non-dualism, or Advaita. So, for example, in the ISKCON tradition, the Hare Krishnas, they will translate it as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's Lord Krishna. He's the ultimate. He is to be worshipped. If you practice, you will be united with Krishna. What I would like to invite us to look at is to translate it as the ultimate essence of personness. This is important. This is one of the major distinctions between the Vedanta and Buddhism. Buddhism will, some schools of Buddhism, say ultimate reality is nothing, zero, shunyata, void. There is no thing there. But Vedanta says ultimate reality is Purnam. Who can tell me what Purnam means? Somewhere out there in Zoom land?
Fullness.
Yes. What's it full of? It's full of being. So when you think of yourself, you're not an it. You're a who. You're a person. What is the ultimate essence of my being a person? Is it my hands? Is it my feet? Is it my nose? Is it my toes? No. If I withdraw my attention from the body, I'm still me. Is it my feelings? No. I quieten the emotions. I'm still me. Is it my thoughts about who I am? I'm good, I'm bad, I'm successful, I'm a failure, I'm smart, I'm stupid, I'm lovable, I'm unlovable. Well, those are just ideas. If we thin out and quiet the mind, I'm still me. So your experience of I is of a conscious, sentient being. In the second chapter, in the 16th verse, get tongue tangled there. Krishna will play with these two terms, Sat and Bhava. Sat is just existence, but Bhava means it has being. So you're not an it. You're not just void. You are aware. You shine. It's an old Buffy St. Marie song from the 70s called God is Alive, Magic is Afoot. Always loved that song. You are life itself. Pardon me?
Can you repeat that line? So what did you say the song was?
The song is called God is Alive, Magic is Afoot.
Okay, thank you.
Written by an old hippie, Buffy St. Marie. But the point I'm getting at here is the self, yourself, you are not inert. You're not unconscious. Deepak Chopra says something that I love. He says, the opposite of life is not death. The opposite of death is birth. There is no opposite to life. We think life is in my body, or in my feelings, or in my thoughts, or the fact that I'm thinking and stuff like that. Really investigate. And you will find that you are life itself, which is not physical. You are a conscious, sentient being. You are the conscious, sentient being. You are the ultimate essence of personness. It's a wonderful meditation. Wonderful meditation. And this being, this life that you are, has nothing to do with the coming and going of bodies, nothing to do with feelings, nothing to do with attitudes, nothing to do with thoughts. It needs no defense, it needs no protection. Always experienced as the witness, as the subject. Now, it is shunyata in the sense that it is nirupaham without a form, nirmalam without any dirt, achalam, it never moves, ajati, unborn, Amritam never dies. It's not nothing. You're you. It's a wonderful word. Wonderful word. One of my favorites. And to meditate on what does it mean? What is, who am I? Am I a zero? Am I nothing? Am I the body? Quieten the mind as much as possible. And with this introverted attentive faculty, investigate yourself. All right. Just put that on the shelf for now. Let's get into the text. So would you start us out, please, Deepa?
Yeah. Let me bring up the screen. Okay.
Chapter 15, verse 1.
Yeah. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Urdhva Mula Mada Shakha Mashvattha Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit. The wise people, the blessed Lord said, the wise people speak of the indestructible Ashwattha tree as having its roots above and branches below, whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows it is alone a Veda knower.
So this Ashwatha tree, this is an image that Vyasa has borrowed from Kathopanishad. We find it there. Some people think it's a banyan tree. Other people think it's the Ficus religiosa, the fig tree. Who knows? If you see some of the beautiful art that the ISKCON people do, you will see pictures of it. So its roots are above and its leaves are below. Now, where you can frequently get a sense of this image is if you're by a body of water where there are trees and the water is still, you can see the reflection of the trees upside down in the water. Those of us who live around Lake Merritt, have you ever seen that sitting on a bench?
Yeah.
You see the upside down trees. So I suspect that's where Vyasa got the image from. It's really cool. But it has deep symbolism. Remember, our scriptures do not have mythology. They have mystic symbolism. Now, the infinite heaven, Brahman, is not up in the sky. But metaphorically, we think of it that way. In English, we have the word heaven. It's a place you go to after you die where God dwells. But we also look at the stars up in the heavens. Many languages have the same idea. So here, this Ashwatha tree is the tree of life. All of life in this phenomenal world has its root, its mula, in the infinite. And then its branches and its fruit, its flowers, its leaves come into this phenomenal world as people, places, things, and situations. And here it says the Vedas are its leaves. Now, In our holy scriptures, we have Shruti, we have Smriti. Let's start with the second one. Who could tell me what Smriti means?
Memory, remembrance.
That which is remembered. Bhagwad Gita is Smriti. It's also called Itihasa. That means it really happened. These are stories about circumstances that people remember. For it to be an authentic itihasa, the person who's telling the story has to be a character in it. So we know it's not written thousands of years later. So in the Mahabharata, Vyasa is a character. He's relating the story. So, but we have another class of literature called Shruti. What does Shruti mean?
Heard?
Say it louder.
Is a heard?
Heard. That was what is heard. We have, Shravana, listening, all comes from the same root. And by that, we mean it's divinely revealed. Now, this whole idea of the Vedas, the root of Veda is vid, which means knowledge. Being divinely revealed. It doesn't mean God out there goes, all right, get your pens out and write this down. No. It means at the deepest level, these great saints and sages, intuited great and profound truths as the result of their deep mystical experience. Came directly from the infinite. It isn't a story told by someone else. So here when Krishna says the Vedas are its leaves, it means this deep, revealed knowledge are the leaves of this tree. Now, what do leaves do? We're a tree that's right side up.
Get nutrients?
They get nutrition, they transmute the carbon dioxide and oxygen. They are the engine, they run the whole tree. Some trees, like the coastal redwoods, actually take in the fog. They get most of their water not through their roots, but through their leaves, through their needles. Ancients may not have understood biology in the way we do today, but they had the intuition that this is the engine, the growth of the tree. So cool. If I walk down Grand, make a right onto Bay Place, right in front of the little Episcopal church is a cherry tree. So during the winter, it was all bare. Then about a month, 6 weeks ago, the cherry blossoms came in. Did you see those?
Mm-hmm.
They're just gorgeous. So quick, but then they fall. And now just a profusion of leaves. It's spring. So the leaves are there bringing in the nutrients and just the amount of growth that happens. So we want to think of this sacred knowledge that the great sages have heard, as it were, from the infinite. Becomes the source of all that we need in life. And the Vedas, as they've been collected and compiled over the centuries, now you write them down, they've got pretty much an answer, a solution for just about everything. They're the collected wisdom that's been revealed to the South Asian population. All right, next verse.
Verse 2. Oh, this is 4 lines. So it's the different meter, I think.
Da da di da dum ba da dum ba da bum bum. That's the rhythm.
Adaschordhvam prasutastasya shakha guna pravritta vishaya pravala adhascha mulanya nusamtatani karmanu bandhini manushaloke. Below and above are spread its branches, nourished by the gunas. Sense objects are its buds, and below, in the world of men, stretch forth the roots, originating in action.
So again, that's why many people think of it as a banyan tree. So if you see a banyan tree, what happens is the branches spread out, and then the branches, the root, will drop from the branch down to the earth. So is the root above? Is it below? So here we're getting a metaphor of how life emerges, proceeds forth from the infinite. So let's look at each one of these ideas. What was the first one, please, Deepa?
Below and above are spread its branches,
Yes.
nourished by the gunas.
So the branches are not only in the world below, but they're also in the subtle world above, nourished by the gunas, meaning all the elements of things and beings partake of tamas, rajas, and sattva. You go hiking on a mountain, the stone of the mountain is largely tamas. You see deer running through the forest. They not only have tamas, but they have rajas. They're moving. And you see human beings, we're supposed to have some sattva. Sometimes I doubt that. But we have intelligence, we have self-awareness. And of course, the purely sattvic for the Mahatmas who live above us. So all the things and beings of the world and in the subtle world, below and above, are the play of the 3 gunas, which we discussed in detail in the last chapter. Next verse.
You don't want the rest of the pieces of the shloka?
Oh, yes, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sense objects are its buds.
So the sense objects that you and I get so attracted to are the little buds that come out in the spring. We see them. Lovely, lovely buds, lovely sense objects. Next one, next idea.
And below in the world of men, stretch forth the roots, originating in action.
Yes. So the roots of the upside down banyan tree stretch into the world of human beings. And we're stimulated by desire. And from desire comes karma, action. And then the fruits of action, the results of actions. It's what makes the world go round. So to sum up, is there more in this verse?
No, that's it.
To sum up, what Krishna is saying here is this entire universe, with all its multiplicity, all its complexity, all its good behavior and bad behavior, all of it proceeds from the infinite. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. In our chant that we do at the end of class, from the fullness of that, the fullness of this world proceeds or issues. It's all God. It's all God. Next verse.
The next two shlokas are together and they're both in the long meter or the short meter.
Go for it, girl.
Narupamasyeha tathopalabhte nanto na char dina cha sampratishtha ashwatthamenam suvirudamulam asanga shastrena dridhena chitva tata padam tatparimargitavyam yasmin gatana nirvartanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapatye yata pravritti prasrita purani.
Excellent. Very good. You're getting the gist of it, of the meter. Good
Thank
job.
you.
What's it mean?
Its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end, nor its origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place. Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Ashwatha tree with the strong axe of non-attachment, then that goal should be sought after, where having gone, none returns again. I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha, from which streamed forth from time immemorial all activity or energy.
So here he sums up our relationless relationship to this marvelous, wonderful, beautiful world of name and form. So let's take each idea. The first one.
Its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end.
So people think I'm an individual, I am my body. There's a real and concrete world of name and form separate from me, separate from God, and most of it sucks. If there is a God, he's an underachiever, so I have to get in there and with my will fix and manage and control everything. That's what we see. What we don't see is that it's all proceeded from God. It's all unfolding according to a divine plan. Absolutely nothing happens in God's universe by accident. In Christianity, as it's pretty much seen today. It's not even monotheistic anymore. You've got God, which is very powerful, but then you got a devil, Satan. You got to be very careful about that. Fight him off, cast out demons. Somehow Satan has better access to you and me than God does for a lot of Christians. In Islam, though, there's a character called Iblis. Iblis is kind of Islam's take on the devil. And the story goes, God told Iblis to go worship human beings. And Iblis says, I'm going to do it. I'm only going to worship you. And God says, okay, your punishment is you must go among humanity and you will be their teacher by vexing them, by giving them trouble. And through that, they will come to me. So Iblis is part of God's design in Islam. So why am I being punished? I have this affliction, this disease, this tragedy. That's a very Christian. The devil's at work. No. Yes, there's vexation. In the end, most of it's caused by our own ignorance. But it becomes the engine of our spiritual growth. We tend to grow as a response to our suffering. It's theoretically possible to grow spiritually by inspiration. However, few people do it. If people's lives are working, they forget God. So when they have affliction, God help me. Everything that happens is part of God. But the foolish people don't see it. Next idea.
Its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end, nor its origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place.
So we don't, same idea, just expanded. We don't see that its origin is in God, that it rests in God, that its end is always in God of everything. We live and we move and we have our being in God. Right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. No place, no time that's outside of God. Going on.
Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Ashwatha tree with the strong axe of non-attachment.
All right. So, how do we end this Ashwatha tree, this samsara, this karma chakra, this world of rising and falling, of becoming and destroying, of wanting and disappointment? As Shakespeare says, grunting and sweating over a weary life. Or as the old African-American spiritual says, tired of living and scared of dying. How do we cut asunder the Ashwatha tree? Doesn't mean we chop it down. Doesn't mean we get out a baseball bat and try to beat up the world. No. It is destroyed through the wonder sword of knowledge. When I see the world for what it is. Now, in our yoga, we deal with 3 fundamental questions. Those of us who've studied Viveka Chudamani, we talk about the 7. Well, that 7 basically only deals with the first question. Who am I? That's the first thing we want to understand. I'm not the body, I'm not prana, not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the ego sense, I'm not even the ignorance. I'm the ground of being, I'm that witnessing consciousness. But that's only half the project. Next, what is this world? And the third question, how has it come about? We need to see the self in and through all the phenomena of the world. It's all God. You can take on the viewpoint, I'm ever the witness of it, it's all mithya, unreal. It's all shunyata, it's all void. It's all pratibimba, comes about like a reflection. It's all swapna, like a dream. Or you can take on the viewpoint, sarvam kalvidam brahma, it's all God. Every experience is the divine. I lean into it because it's all God. Both viewpoints in the end are saying the same thing. But as long as I'm still taking the world as separate from me, having a separate reality, joy producing or misery producing, then I may have a very nice meditation at home, but the world will still upset me because I'm not seeing the self in the world. So this is the implied secret lakshanam meaning of cutting down the Ashwatha tree. I let go of my belief. The world is separate. Now, Shankara describes this in beautiful language with the term anyonya adhyasa. Adhyasa means superimposition. So we've talked a lot about how I superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self. What I am is chidakasha, space of consciousness. But I superimpose the body idea, I'm my body. I superimpose my mind. I am my feelings. I superimpose my thoughts. I'm important. I'm terrible. That's the first kind of adhyasa, superimposition. The second adhyasa is I superimpose, I externalize my self nature onto the world. What is my self nature? Satchidananda. So first of all, Sat. I think the world of name and form has existence separate from me. The couch is over there. It's separate from me. Chit, I externalize and superimpose consciousness on external beings. There's Fang sitting on the couch, and she's a sentient being over there, and she makes me very happy until she makes me very sad. And Ananda, I am a spiritual pauper. I have no happiness. So I need you. I need that. It's called Anyonya Adhyas. I superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self. And then I externalize and superimpose upon the not self qualities of myself. Both of these superimpositions need to be cut asunder. This is what Krishna's talking about here, about with the sword of discrimination, cutting down the Ashwatha tree. Next idea.
Then that goal should be sought after, where having gone, none returns again.
So, as Yoga Sutra summarizes the whole path, Abhyasa Vairagya cha. Practice, abhyasa, meditation, discrimination. But don't forget the second part, Vairagya, mature dispassion. Let it go. Let it be. It's all God. It's all going to work out. Don't worry. When we have given up what the scriptures call kartavya. Kartavya literally means obligatory action, but it means the compulsion to struggle. It's what I call I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. I need to go from point A to point B. I have to do some kind of work. I have to evoke some kind of a change. I either need to fix or improve the world, or I need to fix or improve. That struggle, called kartavya. A person will have no peace until they let go of that. Till we have shanti, peace. Santosha, contentment. Is that all the ideas in these two, or is there more?
There's one last sentence.
Okay.
I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha, from which streamed forth from time immemorial all activity or energy.
So again, everything has issued forth, has proceeded forth, has streamed forth. So what we want to do is take refuge in the source, not in the fruits and the leaves and the twigs and stuff. Meaning, the yogi develops this trick of being able to revel in the sun. And in chapter 2, Krishna has said, that person who casts off all the desires of the mind, and is satisfied in the self by the self. Shankara will say, that person who's a full knower of the Supreme, who has retired into the Supreme. This is the deep meaning of refuge. We can't do that yet. We can start with ideas, with prayers like, today I turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Yoga Sutra, we get the term Ishvara Pranidhana. Complete, absolute surrender to the Lord. I can't, he can, I think I'll let it. And any of us can begin to do that at any moment of the day. We find ourselves getting tangled up. Stop. I can't, she can, I think I'll let it. Let it go. Turn it over to God. We just don't do this surrender once. We don't even do it once a day. For most of us, through the day, when I find myself getting tangled up, stop. Turn it over to God. I'm not in charge. God's in charge. Let it go. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Verse 5. Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandver vimukta sukha dukkha sangye gacchantya mudha padamavyayam tat. Free from pride and delusion, victorious over the evil of attachment, dwelling constantly in the self, their desires having completely retired, freed from the pairs of opposites, such as pleasure and pain, the undiluted reach that goal eternal.
Yes. So again, very important and practical verse. So we start off with a picture of what is it that we need to accomplish. First idea.
Free from pride and delusion.
Yes. What is pride? Ego has a very difficult time just being ordinary. Most of us want to be just a little bit more important, a little better. So what does it do? This person has that wrong. I'm smarter than this person. Oh, I don't want to be around that person. Or pride can be on the other side, where I think I'm worse than anybody. Oh, I'm just a failure at this, and I'll never have a successful relationship, or why am I getting passed over at work, or it's because I'm a woman, it's because I'm gay, it's because I'm a person of color. Poor me. That's pride. That's pride. One place ego has a difficult time with is, I am just like every other human being. We are more alike than we are different. So, what is humility? Humility is the opposite of pride. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. Oh, I'm a worm. I'm really terrible. I'm not very smart. I'm not very talented. No, humility is thinking of yourself less. When your mind is on the work you're doing, when you're there to do seva, service, help other people, when we're not obsessed with how am I doing, am I okay, what do they think of me? And in the end, when we see the total unreality of the ego sense, the delusion is gone. They're not fooled, they're deluded by its strategies. Next idea.
Victorious over the evil of attachment.
Yes. So in Vivekachudamani, Shankara describes Shama, that peaceful state of mind when it rests in steady contemplation of the goal, after having punaha, again and again, detached itself from the chaos of the sense objects. How? By a steady observation of their defects. Think the whole thing through. Attachment and suffering are the same thing. Go, let go, let go. How do we do it? Through insight, not willpower. I can remember having a conversation with someone who didn't want to have nice furniture in their house. Oh, we're Brahmins, we're not supposed to have nice things. We're supposed to be simple. That kind of renunciation is out of an idea. But simplicity that comes because you just don't want to have to take care of a lot of stuff. It's a lot of work. Or you want spaciousness in your life. Do it out of insight, not out of some religious virtue. Can you see the distinction? So the next idea is one of my favorites. Share it with us, please.
Dwelling constantly in the self.
And going on.
Their desires having completely retired, freed from the pairs of opposites.
Okay. So listen carefully. In the end, we are not healed by what we turn from, but by what we turn to. The ruthless rule of the mind is the mind will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. You can't help it. Whatever that is, your mind's going to go there. Now, Thank God. God is the most beloved, or we'd all be in deep doo-doo. So don't worry too much about the world. You've got some really intense attachment that's causing you a lot of problems. Maybe separate from the objects or the person. But by and large, if you notice, I almost never tell people, you need to do this, you need to give that up, etc. I'll give you the principle. But I will always encourage you. Are you meditating? Because if in your meditation, even just once, you have a moment where the attachment to the world fades away, and you get a taste of the peace, of the bliss of your self-nature, your mind will remember it. And that same addictive quality which drove your mind into the sense objects, now we call devotion, and it turns inward and becomes the engine for your spiritual practice. Until you begin to be satisfied by the self in self. That's a paradox. Once you let go of the world, really don't care particularly about it, and you have found what Jesus called the pearl of great price, that kingdom of heaven, you find in the outer, your life starts to straighten out. It becomes much less problematic. When we solve that spiritual malady, the world starts to take care of itself. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. Do your best to turn your mind inward. Meditate, meditate, meditate. Abhyasa Vairagyacha. The second chapter of Yoga Sutra. I've been studying this. I do not know this scripture at all. It's brand new to me. The first sutra in the second chapter. See if I can remember it. Tapas Swadhyayeshwara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. Tapas are various austerities, meaning moving the mind away from its negative grooves into more positive modes of thinking and feeling. That's what we call tapas. It's normally translated austerity. It doesn't mean because it's the virtuous thing to do to fast or stand on one leg or stay up all night. It's far more important to pay attention to our thinking. One of the things the Master Jesus said that I love, the person is defiled more by what comes out of their mouth than by what they put into it. Rather than fasting from food. Nothing wrong with that. Fasting and prayer is always recommended at certain times. But I tell you, fast from your negative thinking is far more powerful. Tapas. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means self-study. And I have two meanings. Normally, we think of it as our own individual study with scripture. But the deeper meaning is, and applying that scripture to my life. And it means becoming familiar with my own personal psychology, my kleshas, my afflictions, my doshas, my defects of character. It's not about us fixing ourselves. Our job is to become aware of it and give it to the and Ishvara Pranidhana. We've talked about that. Complete surrender to God. This is known as Kriya Yoga. Kriya is a very interesting word. What's the difference between karma and Kriya? They both mean action. Karma is an already completed action. Kriya is an action in process. So I can say, Fang ran to the BART, completed action. Or I can say, Fang is sitting on my couch, action happening. Can you catch the difference? Karma, Kriya. So our yoga is not about, I did yogic practices, I meditated yesterday. No! In the now. What's the action I'm doing in the now? Turn my mind to the infinite. That's Kriya Yoga, not Karma Yoga, like we learned in the second chapter. Very interesting distinction. I just learned this. So this is what we're invited to do. This is what we're invited to do. Turning the mind to the infinite. In time, the world will leave us. Those of you who may have had small children or had maybe nieces or nephews, you'll see a child engaged in playing with toys or something like that. And then, lunchtime or mommy's here, baby just drops everything, runs to it. It's gone. This is Tyagaha. And this is what happens when we run towards the Lord. Run towards the end. What's the next idea?
Such as freed from the pairs of opposites, such as pleasure, pain, the undiluted reach that God eternal.
Yes. So we want to stay above the dvandvas. Dvi means two. Dvandva is what we call a reduplicated root. The pairs of twos, the pairs of pairs. Here meaning the pairs of opposites. Usually we describe them as heat and cold. That is a catch-all phrase for all the various physical things that can happen to us. I have a backache. I feel really good. Sukham dukham cha. Pleasure and suffering. These are the reactions of the mind. Too conducive. Do you need to go?
Like a memory or something.
Non-conducive situations. When the situation is conducive, the mind is happy. When the situation is non-conducive, the mind is unhappy. Stand back, just watch it. And then honor it dishonor, siddha, asiddha, accomplishment and failure. These are the evaluations of the intellect. Just watch. So here, this samadrishta, this equality of vision, keeping the mind equanimous, not engaged in the dvandvas, the pairs of opposites. This is our major tool of how to cast off obsession with this Ashwatha tree. All right, did I get all the pieces of this?
Yeah.
All right, this is a good place to stop. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh, that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
And
Thank you,
thank you
Jim.
for chanting, Deepa. Great job.